It's a funny old journey life, isn't it?
It is.
And I'm kind of, I hesitate saying this because it's not right, and it's so much of what I go through that I do struggle to put into words accurately. But there's parts of what I'm going through that I'm almost grateful. I won't say fully grateful, but I'm somewhat grateful for experiencing them, because I am more enlightened. None of this is sort of me making up something that I think is philosophically right or anything else and talking about it. These are all the result of the experience that I'm going through.
Do you ever feel like your life is just too complicated and wish that you could simplify your mindset? In this episode, I catch up with Peter Chambers for our fourth chat, and we discuss how to clear the mental clutter. Peter is living with motor neuron disease, a condition that's challenged him in many ways, but he's turned these challenges into lessons to help others. Peter shares his train track analogy, reminding you to focus on what you can control. He talks about how decluttering your mind can improve your resilience and your overall happiness. Welcome to Move Your Mind, where we uncover why you are holding yourself back from getting the life you want and what to do about it. With the help from high-achieving guests and experts in behavioural science, personal development, and the health and wellness space. Join us if you're ready to move out of your own way toward your ideal self. I'm your host, Nick Brax, and I've been working in the health and wellness space for the last 15 years, helping people find direction and gain the courage to take control of their life. My mission is simple: to help you learn everything that I wish I knew, so you can become your ideal self. Lacking guidance, I spent the majority of my youth feeling lost and disempowered, which led to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and substance abuse. Looking back, I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate what I was experiencing. And as a man, I didn't resonate with the emotional language used in traditional therapy. I didn't need to talk about my feelings. I needed tangible solutions to guide me toward building a life I was proud of. If you can relate, then this podcast is for you. In this episode, we discuss how to declutter your mind. If you're ready to take action and build a stronger mindset, then keep listening. Peter, so great to see you again, mate. This is our third time.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, I don't know if I think you are the only guest to come on 3 times. There's one other. Right? The second to come on 3 times.
I feel honoured.
I feel honoured, mate. And we're catching up on the phone about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I can't believe how much time has passed, since we first did the podcast interview. And it seems like since COVID, everything's become a blur, and it's crazy, how quick it goes.
It is funny, isn't it? We live in very much a pre, post, and during COVID world now. That you say, oh, hang on, when did I do that? And was it between sort of 20 and 22, and therefore the world turned upside down and those sorts of things. You hear about these 1 in 100 year events, and hopefully that's ours. It's it's the big one that the only one we really got to deal with. But it's a big issue. I'm amazed that we're still dealing commercially with the fallout of COVID as well. That things just aren't back to normal. So it affected so many lives in so many ways. It's extraordinary.
It really did, mate. And I mean, I guess podcast being mental health related, you look at the fallout on that side of things, and it's done a huge amount of damage. And I think, people are traumatized from it. People are financially still recovering. There's a whole, range of things. And yeah, it's crazy that, it can have such a lasting impact.
Well, Bear, you're originally from Melbourne as I am, and the most lockdown city in the world during COVID, and you sort of flippantly say that and don't really think about it all that much, but you walk through the city of Melbourne now, and every the coffee culture of Melbourne is such that every building now has its own cafe downstairs. Well, half of those are vacant now. It's and you haven't got people going back to the city yet. They're all working from home and those sorts of things. So it's a massive impact.
It's sad, that's the great thing about Melbourne, the coffee culture and all of that. So yeah, it is the impact is super sad. But
Yeah.
anyway, I guess like what I might do, just even though it is your third time, and I'm sure most of the people listening here will know who you are, but for anyone new that's listening to this episode, maybe if you can just give a backstory on yourself and
Sure.
how you got to where you are now, and share that with whoever's listening.
Absolutely. So, led a normal existence, and I'll call it my, normal boring existence. I hate to think that lives are considered to be boring, but I don't know. You build a career, you have kids, you own a house, you do this, you do that, and it all it seems awfully boring when you look back on it. But so that was me up until 2019. Well, probably about 2018, I had an operation to fuse my vertebrae in my neck, and I didn't come out of that terribly well. I sort of lost a lot of use of my arms and from that operation. And there was 18 months of discovery as to what that might be, and it ended up landing on Motor Neuron Disease, or ALS as it's known in the States. Diagnosed in sort of late 19, early 20, with a slow progression version of the illness. So the version I've got it's called arm flail, and as the name suggests, it affects my arm. So basically, you can't see this, but I move my hands around, and that's about it. I haven't got much arm movement at all now, so hence things I can and can't do as a function of that. So really, and that's just a function of time that it sort of catches up with you and whatever else. So the way I attacked it, Nick, I don't know. I fell on it, and we've had this conversation. I'm really grateful for you for sort of through our mutual friend Phil, kick the ball off in terms of giving me a start with this podcasting and whatever else. And it's really just snowballed for me there, that opportunities have presented themselves, and I've had these conversations. And then again, through your instigation, I made a couple of little videos to share with you, and then that got me thinking about making a video about my life, which I've done, and then that's in the process of getting finalised now. And then I, just put some silly little clips out there of observations and things like that, and that, people liked it. People sort of came back to me, and they saw that as inspiring. And I didn't really mean it to be inspiring or anything else. I was just doing it to pass the time of day and have some fun. But people loved it, which was great feedback for me. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. That you don't set out to inspire someone, but they give you a call or drop you a line and tell you are so inspiring with the things you're doing. It's an awesome feeling. So that sort of fed the beast as well. That these little things pop up from time to time, and I want to put my energy into them, and if I can share the story and just share my story of how I have adapted my lifestyle, my thinking processes, all sorts of things, just to make it as easy as I possibly can make it for me. Because the last thing if I overthink things, if I create stress for myself, if I do all those sorts of things, I know I'll be a mess, but I'm not a mess. So I've built myself a way of coping. Built myself a very strong coping mechanism. So that's been the biggest learning for me, I think, and the thing I'm really pleased to share with people, excuse me, is about how to cope and the importance of just creating an environment where you can deal with whatever comes your way and cope with it well. So that's sort of where I'm at, and it's been pleasing to, again, I didn't set out to do this, but I've done it, and here we are, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing, mate. And it like you're saying, it genuinely has impacted a lot of people. I know, through my own network, when we did that very first interview and the other ones and anything else we've done together, I've heard from so many people. And I think one of the things that has been incredible that you've been able to do is, word your experience in a way that is relatable to everyone, and not just people that are, going through the same struggle that you're going through, but for anyone, on a mental health level. And because you've been able to really, I think you've just got this innate ability to be able to process these mental difficulties that can come up, and come up with ways to work through them, but also communicate that in a way where a lot of people relate to, because a lot of the time you might hear a psychologist or a professional talking about something, and the information's great, but it doesn't resonate, it doesn't hit with people because they're not hearing it in terms of how they think it, how they approach everyday life. And I think that's been a real gift that you've been able to put out into the world and help so many people, and myself included. Your train tracks analogy, it's so simple that I think about it still. Whenever I'm overwhelmed, it actually pops in my head and I go back to it and I think, Nick, shut the fuck up, worry, what the hell, what's the important thing right now? Let's focus on that. What can I control? Yeah. And, it genuinely helps. So I think it's great, what you've done.
Yeah. Yeah, I've thrown, as you know, I've used the word happy as my sort of mantra, and, I've got extra P's in there now that, things have just adapted and changed, and priorities is now another of the P's that I sort of crawl back to, which is exactly what you're talking about there. Prioritise the things in your life, because, 90% of them aren't important. They are. When you're lying awake at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about the world and everything else, they're really important then, because they're the things that are stopping you from sleeping. But, when the cold light of day, when you shake your head and, what the fuck was I thinking about it, about that at 3 in the morning for? Because it's not important. The number of things that aren't important that we make important. So I think that's one of the things I've got the benefit of time on my hands, and I've also got the benefit of not leading the hectic lifestyle that so many people have to live to earn money, to put food on the table and all that sort of stuff. So I'm aware that I'm immune from that sort of stuff. So last thing I want to do is become preachy and so, this is how to live your life, and this is how to do this, because it's not me and it's not the message. The message is simple: try to do these things and try to learn from these things. So I don't pretend to be the answer to everything, but I've got a pretty big shit sandwich to work through, and I've got my ways of working through it, and they're working, and they are rubbing off on people, and that's the pleasing aspect as well.
Absolutely, mate. And I think that's a really important message, what you're saying there, that, it's not about being preachy. And I think that's, again, why it resonates with people, because, we can sort of tell people, bark orders at people, say, oh, this is what you should be doing or whatever else, but it won't really resonate. There's no one size fits all. So I think being able to just put that relatable information out there in ways that people can make what they want of it, and, in their own circumstances, that genuinely helps. We need more of that. So I think, it's a really, really important thing. If you're looking to make a change, to lose weight, to get toned, to gain self-confidence, all in just 24 minutes a day, then go no further. You can check out the Move Your Mind community by going to nickbracks.start.page.
Yeah. It's a funny old journey life, isn't it?
It is.
And I'm kind of, I hesitate saying this because it's not right, and it's so much of what I go through that I do struggle to put into words accurately. But, there's parts of what I'm going through that I'm almost grateful. I won't say fully grateful, but I'm somewhat grateful for experiencing them, because I am more enlightened. It is easier for me to embody the things that we're talking about here. And I do live it. I don't, none of this is sort of me making up something that I think is philosophically right or anything else and talking about it. These are all the result of the experience that I'm going through. And I'm really happy to share it, and really happy to talk it through with people, because, it's very real. The mental health issues that are prevalent in society today are very, very real, and all too, there's all too much going on around us
Yeah.
And lifestyles and all those sorts of stuff lend themselves to this build-up of allowing issues to get on top of us and push us down and those sorts of things. It's just this whole social media thing and information overload and all that sort of stuff. It's bloody hard. It's really hard.
It's almost impossible not to sort of get burnt out in the modern world with all of that, because it's like how your brain isn't made to be taking in that much information, and we never switch off, and then you're comparing yourself to people, and pressures left, right, and center in life doesn't need to be that complicated. But it's tough. It's there's no easy answer to it, because we are in a society that is encouraging this and built on this sort of stuff. So it's really tricky to change it.
Absolutely. Yep. Dead right. Oh, well, we'll get there one step at a time.
We will, mate. We will. Indeed. So for everyone listening, can you give them an overview of the happiness analogy that you've come up with, what that stands for?
Yeah, so it started when I did another podcast after I spoke to you first time round, and the happiness thing came out of my first chat with you, and I thought about the word happy because someone said to me, "You've chosen to be happy," and that sort of choice happiness. It sort of I had to bounce it around a fair bit to get my head around it myself as to whether that was actually true. Is there such a thing as choosing happiness, or is happiness just happen, or inform your lap, or what happens? But it sort of, when I thought it through, it is a choice. I don't pretend it's as simple as a yes or no answer, but I don't know if you take the initial position that it is a yes or no answer, then I think it helps you, get to the outcome of and allowing yourself to be happy. So I put some words around it to give me a reminder, I suppose, as to what happiness meant to me, and some value-based stuff. So H being honesty, that anyone asks me how I am, you get an honest answer. I think that's, again, just breaks down a really simple premise. Be honest. It's not that hard. Acceptance, which is sort of linked a little bit with happiness, that I accept the situation that I'm in. I can't change it. I won't change it. So accept this is me, and adapt accordingly. The P's are sort of a purpose. Is one of the important ones, and my wife sort of popped that one into my head, where she spoke about the stuff that I was doing and talking about it and whatever else, and she made the comment, this has given you a real purpose, which it had. So again, the importance of having a purpose and sort of following that through. Perspective is a big one. I see and hear, I've got a mate who's, I won't go into the issues, but he's got some family issues going on, and we caught up a while back and started to talk about his issues, and none of which are his doing or anyone's doing, but they're just there. And he said, told me what's going on, said there's nothing like what you're dealing with. And I shook my head and said, no, it's bullshit, mate. It's absolute bullshit. That they're just a different set of circumstances. And I wouldn't want to go through what he's going through for all the tea in China, because I've got a loving family environment, and it's critical to me, and he hasn't, through no fault of anyone's. And so, there's perspective for you. That he's looking at me going, well, you've got a terminal illness, so nothing can be as bad as that. And I'm saying, well, absolute rubbish. It's all perspective. It's all relative to the situation that you're in. So, it's a little message. Again, I like to push out that perspective is so big. But everyone within 30 seconds will find out, will think through someone who's worse off than what they are. It's not, they're out there. So, perspective, priorities, as I touched on before, has become sort of a part of that grouping of P's. And then I couldn't find a why. So I just said, why not? Why not be happy? And that sort of pulls in the choice bit. That why not be happy? Because it's a choice. You can choose to be happy. When at the end of the day, I don't pretend to be a mental health expert, but I do I am an expert in living with the experiences that I've got. And I know from my point of view that despite all the shit going on around you, you still can push that button, albeit it's going to be harder for some than others. But, you can tweak that button in favour of being happy despite what you might be going through. So that's that sort of embodies the happiness spirit, I suppose.
Are you interested in joining a community of like-minded people who are on the same journey as you are? Even though you're the one that needs to do the work, you don't have to go it alone. You can find all of the information at nickbracks.start.page. I love it, mate. Well, thank you for sharing that. I think it's such a simple tool for anyone to use to refer to. And I love what you're saying about acceptance there, because I think especially with men, we can often shame ourselves if we're struggling. And exactly like you said there, I know I've had this feeling before when, I was first talking about it and I was thinking, who am I to be talking about my own experience I've had with mental health when I've grown up in, probably what would be seen as privilege. I've grown up in a family where I've had a lot of opportunity and, had a successful father and whatever else. And you feel shame about it because or you tell yourself, well, people have it worse off. So who am I to complain? And a lot of the time society will tell us that as well. Or, it's an old school way of thinking. Well, you just got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and push forward. And that's actually important sometimes as well, to not get caught in it. But we do need to be able to not shame ourselves about being open about what we're going through, and especially for men, for any men listening to this, I think your example was pretty powerful that you just said before, when, your friend is thinking, well, how could anything, how can I complain when, you're going through this, but then you were able to give him some perspective, and it's all relative, there's no worse or better. It's about, if you're struggling, and we need to support each other. We need to talk about it. We need to be able to be vulnerable, especially if we're men, and have that support.
That's the other thing too, Nick. I've seen in a lot of along my journey is the care factor. That I'm such a big believer now in the human spirit and what it provides, what it gives us. Everywhere I go, people care, and I just see it. I've got a disability. People know I've got a disability, and so therefore they, it might be tiny, it might be invisible, or it can be very, very in your face. But I just love observing the human spirit in action through care, and seeing, and sort of taking a third person step back and going, how's this going to play out? Because I'm pretty sure that they're going to care for me right now, whatever the circumstances might be. Going into, I'll give a good example. Last Christmas, I think it was, we went out for Christmas, a dinner a couple of weeks before Christmas. I travelled a bit in a wheelchair now because can't walk very far, and it's all about preserving energy. So I had my wheelchair, walked into this restaurant, and about 3 or 4 people had to move their chairs to accommodate me. And so I felt a bit self-conscious, and just, I didn't have chits or anything, but just, felt self-conscious. And my son, Tyler, who was pushing me around, just sort of, he admonished me and said, no, Dad, 3 people are going to go away tonight feeling better about themselves because they helped you out. I thought, shit, that's probably true. So those sort of little lessons that you pick up on, are, they're the things that I've sort of been able to soak up and witness. And therefore I love talking about that sort of aspect as well, the good about people and the good that I see. I look at the 99 out of 100 thing. I see the good in people, and just your people in your normal everyday lifestyle don't see the things that I'm seeing. So if I'm witnessing it and being a part of that, I think it's really important to share that with others. And it's probably the bloke. One of my little lines that I like using. It's probably the bloke sitting next to you who cares most for you, and you don't even know it. So again, I just love the exposure I get to that aspect of it.
100%, mate. Which sort of leads me to my next question. Through this whole journey, what would you say is the biggest thing you've learnt about yourself and the biggest thing you've learnt about other people? That might be a bit of a tough one to answer on the spot. I'm throwing you under the bus here.
What have I learned about myself? I think I've learned, again, I hesitate saying that I did lead that boring life before, but, in comparison, it's such a different life that I led before. And I love the fact that I've adapted, mentally, physically, attitude-wise. I've got a bit of a voice and I'm using it. And if you said that about me 10 years ago, that this is where we'd be in 10 years' time, well, obviously I'd, trade the health part in in a millisecond. But being exposed to all the stuff that I am now exposed to that I wouldn't have been exposed to otherwise, it's a journey I can't trade it in, right? So I've embraced it. I've actually embraced that part of the journey, and I love the learning that comes with it. So I just think I love my ability to adapt and suck up the good, bad, and indifferent shit that comes with with what I'm dealing with. So that's probably the stuff I'm most proud of and happy with. What was part B, Nick?
I love that, mate. Well, yeah, you gave such a good answer that I almost forgot myself. But part B was what have you learnt about other people, or what's the biggest thing you've learnt about other people through this whole journey?
I'll probably go back to the care thing again. I'm in a unique position to observe people caring, and yeah, everyone's got. I'm such a big believer in the wonderful thing that is the human spirit, because I see it. It's on display every day. I'm in a scooter or a wheelchair or whatever, and people get out of my way. They see me coming from 10, 20 yards down. Except for those on their phone, interesting. I'm going to take someone out one day. It's amazing. You don't observe this until you're in a situation of being in a wheelchair, that you're sitting lower than everyone else. So it's harder to see what's going on around you, in a crowd. But when the number of people that walk down the street looking at their phones, no idea that you're coming the other direction, and pull up about 3 feet in front of you. Oh, sorry. It's something I wouldn't have noticed unless I was sitting in a wheelchair and not being able to control me getting out of the way, kind of thing, so quickly. Yeah. So I sort of plough through, and I will take someone out one day.
I love it.
So that's probably I've got a unique view of the good, bad, and indifferent of life, and and I love the fact that I can really focus on that care side, and I've got so many examples about it that it's wonderful.
I love it, mate. Yeah, that's great. Well, a lot of our podcast is focused on men's mental health, getting these messages out there to them. What would you say to, if there is someone listening to this, what would you say to someone who's struggling, like a man who is really struggling, they don't know what to do, they feel stuck? What message would you give to them if you could talk to them?
Yeah. Look, I think from my perspective, it's sharing my journey. I don't have the tools of trade, as it were, and the skills that come with being an expert in this field. But as I say, I'm I'm an expert in living it. So, everyone's circumstances are, well, I was going to say the same but different, and they probably are the same but different. I think it's, from my point of view, the root cause of what my challenges are pretty obvious. So I've been able to compartmentalise them, and I don't look into the future. From my point of view, I'm pretty sure my future's not going to be all that pretty when things get a bit dire, and that's something I'll deal with at the time. But I'm not looking at that. I'm not, looking 5 years down the track and wondering how I'm going to be. I refuse to do that. So I think I've been able to, really get an understanding of what's important to me, break that down through the sort of the happiness bit, and just getting to the bottom of my issues, what I can and can't do about them. And for me, it's the importance too of, my family environment's wonderful. My friendship group and people who support me is just unbelievable. So I want to be able to bring everyone along for the ride as well, and show that I'm not, whilst I am struggling and physically I'm struggling and whatever else, I want to be an example of, well, things get pretty shitty, but you can always drag yourself up and whatever else. So it'd be a conversation. If I was to, I find it hard to give advice in a general sense right now. I'm trying to, and that's probably the general sense I'm talking about. But from my point of view, it'd be more valuable in a one-on-one kind of environment to help work through, the issues that someone might be facing, and again, just use my experience to maybe, if I can help 5%, I can help 5%.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to, that acceptance part of just, first of all, accepting the situation and, taking that first step. So, yeah, I think it's a great point.
And again, it comes down to the perspective thing of, everyone's got some issues out there. So I think, the thing I love about society these days, Miguel, I'm another era from yourself and my kids and whatever else, but, the society these days is able, and things like this, it's exactly these sharing kind of environments that are probably the most positive, outcome of COVID. Here we are, we've got a platform to share and to talk and whatever else. I think that's just so good. And I think the willingness and capability to, again, I look at my kids' generation, they're not kids anymore, they're young adults, but I look at their friendship group and they're a wonderful generation. I'm really grateful for the generation that they are and how open they are with things. I get hugs from all these mid-20s guys whenever I see them. It's moving. So I think that platform for that generation is in place to share and to talk it through. So I think that's a real, we've, as a society, I think we've made some really big steps in that regard. Yeah,
for sure. It's such a positive thing, with all the negative sides, there are these positive sides of technology, and like you're saying, this stuff really taking off during COVID. So I think a really good answer. So, well, Peter, thank you so much for coming and sharing all of this again. We finish with 5 closing questions, so I'll be able to go back and compare the answers to the previous 2 times. We might have to do a compilation of all of them. So we'll see how we go with these, but these can be sort of, whatever answer comes to mind. The first one being, what do you think is currently the biggest burden on mental health in society? Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram at NickBrax. I really appreciate your ongoing support.
Probably the burden is, I think it's maybe self-imposed. I think it's that starting point that it's probably hard again, I'm using my example and how I work through it, but I can imagine for many, many people, taking that first step is probably the hardest step. There's I don't know if embarrassment's the right word, but the stigma associated with it, that I'm really, really struggling right now. You hear about the black dog and all those sorts of things and everything else. I can't imagine how tough that would be to live your life not being able to tell that black dog to fuck right off.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how that would be. It's not my nature, fortunately, that I'm in that situation. But so I think just taking that first step and being able to unburden yourself of what you are living with, because it's very, very real. What mental health can do to people. So I think really that. No, I don't. I'm not close enough to it, but I think the mechanisms are probably largely there these days, or certainly more of them. But I think just that ability to destigmatize and accept. Well, there's that word again. Accept that you've got an issue and deal with it.
Absolutely, mate. I think, really well put. If you could give one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, what would that be?
Take some risks. I'm not, it's my nature again not to be a risk taker, but knowing full well now that things that I could, should, would have done back as an 18-year-old would work out fine, but not being able or prepared to take the risk at the time. I really wish, I've got mates who have, done this and done that and all those sorts of things. And again, I go, oh, really? I could have done that kind of thing, but again, it wasn't in my nature and it wasn't right for the time. So I think, I think for me, it would be accept that you're smart enough to work through what the risks are and it'll be all right. Yeah. I'm not talking about, jumping off cliffs into small ponds or anything kind of risk. I'm just, it's all the risks that we face every day that, things will turn out right. That's what I'd love to tell myself now. Do it because it'll turn out all right.
Absolutely.
Or, you'll be able to work through it.
No, I couldn't agree more, because we can talk ourselves out of anything, and we often, dramatize, look at the worst case scenario. But the reality is most risks, if you play it out, it's the even worst case scenario is probably not that bad, unless disclaimer for anyone listening: don't jump off cliffs. Though, we're definitely not encouraging you to do that. Not those kind of risks.
No.
But other ones. What's your personal definition of happiness?
Oh boy, it's a mental thing. Because I'm mentally happy, and I've had conversations with mates. One of them said to me once, but how do you know you're not faking it? Well, wow, there's a good call, really good question. So I thought long and hard about that, and again, it sort of happened at the same time. I was talking to a mate, and I was doing a couple of things, and he said, "Oh, you must be so happy right now." And I said, "Look, I am, but the reason I'm happy, the reason I'm doing all these things is because of my illness. So I can never be truly happy because there's always going to be something, looking over my shoulder that's stopping me from being truly happy." So I sort of analysed that a little bit, and I came up with my own way of coping with that as well. And that was maybe there's another email, another video I've got to send you to another time because it's a bit wordy, but I basically got a ring, what I call my happiness loop, and it's either open or it's closed. If it's closed, then great, you're as happy as you can be at that moment. If it's open, I sort of look at it, that open bit is the black bit, and I'll take the black bit out and I'll deal with it, and then you can close it again. You can close the good bits. So I sort of that's how I deal with happiness, I suppose, is to ask myself, well, what is it's always, so my health's always going to be there, can't change that. But there's always, going to be other things that pop up from time to time. So I've got the ability to look at something and say, that's what's making me unhappy right now, and I can deal with it. Again, it comes back to the train tracks. If it isn't important, yes, no. If it is, deal with it. If it's not, out the window. Ignore
Absolutely. And
it. Yeah.
I think that's great advice with the ring of, if you can see, what it is that's affecting you or what the problem is, go and deal with it. Because a lot of the time, I think a lot of, mental health comes from anxiety, overwhelm, stress of having an underlying issue that we are probably aware of, some of it, but we don't want to address it because we're overwhelmed, or so I think just facing some of these things head on, it can be confronting, but then we can really work through it. And again, obviously the things we can control, you can't control everything, but the things we can, if we can deal with it, it can allow us to probably reduce a lot of the anxiety that would otherwise come.
Yep.
Can be really important.
That's a good point. Yep. No, it's critical. It really. Again, I'm in a position because I haven't got all the bullshit going on in the background that others have, but I can simplify things because I've got time in my hands, so I can, I haven't got the competing issues that everyone else has got. So I realise I'm in a somewhat privileged position from that point of view of having the time and space to be able to simplify things. But again, it's probably, might have to make it shappy or something rather than happy. Chuck the S on there and call it simplify. Or maybe it's a silent S, I don't know.
Exactly.
But simplify things, That's a bit of advice I could give everyone as well. Life isn't as challenging as what you think it is at any point in time. Just, work it through. You'll find out it's actually simple.
Yeah, absolutely. What are you most proud of?
Look, I think my so-called new journey, just my ability to adapt. Because, there's two roads I could have gone down with this. One was, the coping road, the not coping road. The not coping road would have been disastrous. It would have had negative impact on friends, family. I'm pretty quick to jump to the analogy that, are you going to ring me if I'm a grumpy arsehole on the end of the phone telling you how bad life is, versus, the conversations that we do have, which bloke are you more likely to ring? It's easy, isn't it? Your human nature says you're not going to ring the bloke and get him to unload all his troubles on you. So I became the other bloke.
Yeah.
I deliberately avoided being the one who tells you all his woes and whatever else. I wanted to be the one who could try and, as I've done, share my part of the story, and hopefully have an impact on, I am having an impact on people, which is just outrageously good. So I think that my capacity and ability to cope and come out the other side in some regards better, I'm really proud of. I can look back at who I am now and have positive conversations with people. I love that. People know that what I'm doing. They know how I'm going about things, and they do gravitate towards me to have a conversation about it and to be able to have some knowledge and shared insights to go back to people with is just mind blowing for me, and I love it.
Yeah, and it really has made a difference. And you're speaking at Richmond Football Club, or you're on Jack Rewalt's podcast. You're out there in the community. People are hearing about this, and people are genuinely moved by the work you're doing and getting benefit out of it. So I think it's such an important thing. And as a final question, we talked about your happiness analogy and the ring. Can you just refresh, just as a very quick overview? I've mentioned it a couple of times, the train tracks analogy, just as a final thing. Can you explain to anyone listening what that is?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So I'm a visual guy, right? I sort of, I have to see things on paper or whatever it might be. Then I'm able to get it in my head and create the picture, and it works when I do that. So I had this. It just sort of came to me out of nowhere that this mental image of sitting up the front of a train. It goes back to when I was first diagnosed. I asked the neurologist who was telling me about my arms, and okay, I've got to ask the question. I don't want to know the answer to here. I don't want to know how bad things are going to be, but I got to. So I just asked them the question. Well, losing your arms, what does it actually mean? They just sort of, ask the question. Are they just bits of spaghetti hanging off your shoulders? And he said, well, ultimately, yes. So, okay, I've got the answer, right? So now I can deal with that. So that's when I thought, and leading up to that, it was a really tough, do I ask him? And I wanted to, but I was having difficulty coming to that conclusion. So that's when I said, well, it's important, so I've got to ask him. And that's when I sort of created the train track concept in my head of looking forward and going, well, there's the question about your arms right in the middle of the tracks. You got no choice but to ask it. So that helped me ask it. But I was finding too the other things that, again, just having too much time in my hands and simplifying things and whatever else, the opposite came just as true to me, that there are things that you don't need to worry about and concern yourself with, and they're the ones that don't ever appear in the train tracks in front of you. And it's amazing, if you've got nothing in front of the train track and all you can see for miles and miles and miles, life becomes pretty bloody simple, because you've thrown all the baggage out. There's no baggage sitting on the tracks in front of you. And so if I picture my train track at any point in time, God, there's nothing on it. And that's a really powerful position to be in, to say that nothing's going to derail me right now. There's nothing in the way there that is going to cause me anything for concern. There might be a bend up ahead and I might have to look around the corner, but we'll look around the corner when the train gets there.
Yeah.
So that's it, mate. That's my
I love it, mate. Well,
my silly little coping technique.
No, well, it's great. I love the way you put it, and again, it's helped me dramatically. So, mate, thank you for coming and sharing all of it. Again, we're going to have to get you on here for a fourth and fifth time. Let's make it.
Oi!
We've got to get the record, mate. You're equal first place now. So we've got to get you ahead. So maybe, we'll do it sooner than, last time. I think it's been a couple of years since we last did it. So, final thing, where can anyone listening, if they want to, we'll put all of this information in the show notes for it, but if they want to find, you on YouTube or any of the work you're doing, where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, it's a couple of people have stolen my name, but I think if you go so my name, Peter Chambers MND, on YouTube. I think if you search that up, you'll see some of the stuff I've done there. That's probably the starting point. Everything goes up on YouTube, and then it's Instagram and everything else. It flows from that as well. But so everything has gone up on YouTube. So I'll send you I got a link tree there, so I might send you that, and you can put that up if you like. Even better. So anyone listening, we'll have the link tree in the show notes. So make sure to go check it out. And I don't know what link tree is, Nick, but I got one. You've got one, yeah. I'm the wrong generation. Yeah, well, I think the listeners, most of them will probably know what it is. But anyway, it's good that you got it. It's good that you've got it. So, mate, appreciate you making the time. Thanks, Thank you again. Take care, mate. Cheers. Thank you, Peter Chambers, for joining me today and offering your insights. And thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to leave a comment or just send a DM. Your feedback is always appreciated. Please don't forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much.